And we are live. Welcome, Dave Dobson, one of the self published science fiction competition finalists. We talked to you last week in regards to SPSFC, but now we're having you on to talk sci fi. So, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here.
Uh, you know, Ro is actually here. I don't know where he ran off to, but he's here. We'll we'll have to ask our audience if it's better or worse. Uh,
Well, I hope he gets here because I wanted to see where on the spectrum between bold and balding I was making it there. I know I'm somewhere between you on the spectrum, but you know.
So, and EL is here. He hasn't. See how long before he gets kicked out. Ro is actually in a hotel, and wait till you see his shirt. The light dances over it. It's just mesmerizing. So if you end up not remembering what Dave or I look like because you're watching Ro's shirt, I totally understand.
I count that as a success. Yeah.
So Dave, tell us about your book. I'll hold it up here.
Oh, okay. I can hold it up too if we're trying to do all of that.
Okay. What is it about?
So it's called Kenai. It's about a former space marine who left the service she didn't leave the service in disgrace, but she's been disgraced since then. Hi, Ro.
Hey, man.
And she is trying to put her life back together, and so she's agreed to be the security for a xenoarchaeological dig on the planet Kenai, which is a planet that had alien civilizations on it a long time ago, but doesn't anymore. So she is there with one archaeologist, and that's how the book starts, is they're just hanging out on this planet. And she's the security, but the planet is peaceful and there's nobody there. So it should be just a cakewalk and a good way to get her feet back under
her. So how long did it take you to write the book?
I started it. I was actually trying to write it for SPSFC for 2 summers ago, to enter it in the one previous to this.
Right.
But a family member had an accident and I was helping him out. And so I just kind of gave up because I was going to cut it close anyway. And so that gave me some time to finish up. I had another project or two to do in the meantime. But yeah, so I started kind of spring of 22, I guess, and then ended up finishing it last summer. In time for the entry for the competition. So yeah, it's been out a little more than a year, I think.
Okay. And how many books have you written?
I have written 9 novels in my midlife renaissance as a writer here. I have a children's book that's traditionally published from '96. But yeah, nine actual novels or books.
They all
and a
sci-fi?
bunch of academic stuff too, but that doesn't really count for what we're talking about.
Are they all sci-fi?
No, actually, I am following no one's advice and trying to do multiple genres. So I have 5 fantasy, 2 sci-fi, and then 2 kind of mystery thriller. I've been branching out a little bit. I started with fantasy. The first 2 or 3, 3 were fantasy, and then I did Daros, which was my first sci-fi one. Then another couple fantasy, and then I did Got Trouble, which is my first thriller set in North Carolina in present day. And then I went back and did Kenai, and I came back and did a mystery that's also in North Carolina, and then which is where I live now. And then I just finished another humorous fantasy one, so I'm kind of all over the place, just whatever I feel like doing, which is terrible business advice, I am told, because when people discover they like one of your books and then they go and look at the rest of them, they're confused or annoyed. So,
Do you write them all under your own name, Dave?
yeah, which is another thing people tell you not to do. But I would get confused trying to keep track of more names. So I thought it would be better to just do it this way.
Which one do you like writing the most?
I don't know. I kind of get really into each of them as I go, and it's just whichever one I'm sort of jonesing for. I've done the two mystery thrillers as part of NaNoWriMo, so I did them both pretty fast in November, although I've used NaNoWriMo for some of my other stuff, but I was able to do them quickly the last couple of Novembers, so that's worked pretty well.
You actually able to kick out 50,000 words in Nano?
For Got Trouble, I did the whole first draft in NaNoWriMo, which was 101,000.
Wow.
Which was nuts. I was not thinking straight by the end. I have the advantage, which is that I left my academic job a couple of years ago, and so I am nominally doing this full time, which is hardly ever full time, but in those times it kind of was. So, yeah, my wife has good insurance, and thanks to my history with Snood, which was my computer game back in the 90s, I've got enough money to goof around now a little bit and try this out.
Nice. That's kind of the dream.
So,
Yeah.
Dave, I will tell you, I am following in your footsteps because I've released 4 fantasy novels, and my next one coming out next month is a sci-fi.
Oh, awesome.
Which I'm trying to get out in time for Spacebo.
Yeah.
So, you know,
but you still have a job, and you didn't put out a computer game in the 90s that's funding you, and otherwise you're exactly the same.
Yeah, and I don't have a PhD.
Oh, well, that's not necessarily an asset in any part of life. But.
Piled higher, deeper, baby.
Ooh. So last time we talked to you, you told us that you do stand-up sometimes. Have you done any stand-up recently?
I mostly do improv. I've been on a improv team at a local comedy club for 18 years. So, yeah, and I was just to practice last night. So that's the most recent improv I've done, probably being a show on Sunday. But I also this year entered the stand-up competition. They call it the Ultimate Comic Challenge. And I washed out in the first round. So that was both expected and comforting because now I don't have to come up with anything for the second round. But so that was kind of fun. I posted a link to that on my Facebook page. If you want to see me flail for 4.5 minutes, no, that was a lot of fun. I ended up doing a whole bunch of cow puns as part of my routine, which is also not recommended if you want to win comedy competitions. But I had a great time. Yeah.
Now, I would think a competition like that would be far, far more kind of harrowing than a something like Spacebo.
It is, yes. Improv is a joy for me because you're up there with a bunch of people who are all trying to support each other, and everybody expects it to be terrible. And so when you're not terrible, because you're making it up on the spot, if you're not terrible, everybody's like, whoa, that was cool. You were not terrible. But with stand-up, everybody has this expectation from Netflix specials and, the pros that you're going to be good. And, unless you've put in 15 years, you're not that good. And so, and you're the only one up there and no one can save you. And so you kind of are just dying up there sometimes. So yeah, I find
let's be honest though. I mean, we've all seen Netflix specials of professional comedians that have sucked.
Yeah. Well,
they're not all great. Or even good.
Yes, but unless you've been to an open mic with people trying out new material, you probably haven't seen how bad it can suck, or sucked that way yourself, as I have on occasion experienced.
No, I mean, personally, I think improv would be a lot of fun. Certainly more fun than stand-up, but as you're in a group, that's got to help you, though, when you're getting into the headspace of writing characters and dialogue, yeah?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the way I write is almost completely seat of the pants. Like, I don't start with an outline. The beginning of November when I did Got Trouble and did the whole book in a month, I had one concept. What if this did this? And that was basically the thing I started with. And I just wrote the scenes as they came and had the characters do dialogue as it made sense. And then, at the end, you have some dead ends or things you need to trim off or stuff that you set up that totally didn't go anywhere or things that you need to thread together. But for me, that totally works because that's the way kind of I've been trained to think, both by improv and then, if you ever played any D&D, which I know Mike has because you've got published modules, right? So,
Mike's never played D&D.
What's that?
That's his big lie. That's Mike's big lie right there.
I've never played D&D, but I do have D&D modules.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
he did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, though.
Well, anyway, D&D is very improv-y, because you are speaking as a character that you're trying to get in the head of, and you don't know what other people are going to say to you or what the DM's going to throw at you. And so, so that is basically improv. And so that is a way that I've gotten used to thinking. And I think if I tried to, outline a conversation where he has to make this point and then he has to reveal that the forest is full of bandits and then they have to plan, I just couldn't do it. I have to have the characters speak the way I think, which is responding to what's just been said, figure out who they are and what they would take from that. And then a lot of times that leads me to places where there's a shift in plot or a shift in focus just because the character is kind of taken something a different way than you might.
Oh, look, shiny thing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So that happens a lot. I about halfway or maybe 2/3 of the way through the book, I go back and figure out how many kind of balls I've thrown up in the air and how many of those are going to land on the floor. And I either have to figure out ways to catch them or I have to write them out of the book during the editing process. But so I do have that sort of chaos because I'll just throw something in that sounds cool, whether it's an enemy or something like that. I added an enemy to a scene in Outcast Crown, which is one of my fantasy ones in the Quizzers Guild, who I had no idea she was going to be there at the beginning of writing that chapter. And she ended up becoming a major character in the book just because, wouldn't it be cool if there was somebody upstairs in this house they were trying to investigate? So, so my stuff is chaotic and ill-planned like that, but that's the way I have kind of taken it. So
I think you get a much better experience out of that, certainly as a writer, probably as a reader as well, than having something that is planned
if I
to death.
fail, then it doesn't go anywhere, and you end up with a scene that hasn't, accomplished anything and isn't even funny. And if I find myself doing that, usually I have to throw it out on the edits or just, start that chapter over. But that doesn't happen very often because I have a towering ego about my writing. And so nothing I write can be stricken from the book once it's in there, kind of thing. So it's very hard for me to take out, especially jokes. That's my hardest thing to take out if I've worked hard to make a joke.
Does your editor indulge this ego?
No, because my first editor is my wife, and so she is very familiar with that. And so she will, I give her a spiral bound printed copy, from Office Depot or wherever, and she fills it with little sticky tabs down the side. Some of which are, this is great, I love this, haha, and others of which are sometimes just no. That was my most succinct critique of my last book. was just a paragraph with a no next to it, and so I had to take that joke out. So she keeps me honest, and then I have a couple of people in my early reading team who also will tell me if something's not working or if they don't like how it's going. So I do sometimes have to take a good 45% of what they tell me to do and implement it. So. Yeah.
It's going to be hard too if you're trying to make it funny because there's, it's like EL said, quick, be funny.
Yes, I ignored that comment as if I hadn't seen it because that's a very hard thing to do to a comedian. Not all my books are knee slappers. Most of them are trying to be funny a little bit. Kina is actually one of the more serious ones, although it has some funny elements. In contrast to the SPSFC one we talked about last week, which is they're trying very hard to be funny, which is more what I do all the time, as you probably can tell already. But I do always use stupid chapter titles in the books. They're almost always jokes or puns or something like that. So there's always at least that much humor in there. And Jess has some funny interactions with one of the residents of the planet she's on that she meets. So I think that's. I think there's some funny parts in the book.
So, speaking of funny people, have you got together with any of your Spacebo finalists?
I've been working on that. I sent out a schedule today. We're trying to do a chat. It might happen as early as Saturday, I guess. But the problem is one of the finalists is in Western Australia, and two of them are in the Midwest. And then there's a guy in Finland who would join up, one of the judges. So we actually span 13 hours. And so that's a little hard to get everybody together for a meeting because it's not even the same day in Australia as it is here sometimes. So yeah, no, I'm trying to do that because I think it would be really fun just to get everybody together. I can't reach Lee Saunders. I've tried to reach out to her, but I've got the other five of us are on board potentially at least. So yeah, I think that would be fun. And then the guy, Andrew Hindle, one of the judges, does the Hat Boy blog, and he's just super funny. So it would be great to have a judge's perspective on it too. I really don't know what we're going to talk about. I think it'll just be, meandering for a good hour or however long we can do this while all of us stay awake in our respective time zones. But
when is you probably hit this before I came on. When are the results due for this?
They are due in mid-June, I think. I don't know if there's an official date, but yeah, it's coming up pretty close. The finalists were announced maybe a month and a half ago, and then they have time because not all the judging teams have read all of the books. Spacebo has a little bit of a different setup than SPFBO does. So, like, the finalists have each already been read by a couple of the judging teams, and then the other 4 judging teams have a chance to read the books they haven't read yet. So they have some work to do. But
in those poor people that have to read Will's book and Wick's book, which are both about that thick.
Yeah, I heard those were pretty long. Mine's a safe 100,000 words or so. Yeah.
Yours is Mike approved.
All right. Very good.
Oh. So yeah, I was just going to say same thing. We tried to interview everyone from, and I can't get in touch with Lee Saunders any way, shape, or form. There's just no. And
winner.
And when you said that one of them is in Western Australia, that's Tim, and he will be on tomorrow night.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think it's 8:00 now, Ro. He had me change the time. It's either 8 or 9. I think it's 8.
8:00 tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be 8 a.m. his time, I know, because I was doing the math today. So he will be bright and chipper while you guys are.
Don't know if I'll be home.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just have to take it on myself.
Solo on that one, Michael.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, I'll start the debate up again over who has more dangerous animals, Australia or the U.S.
It's so funny that they think we do. It's
so
you can at least see.
I think most people in other countries are more scared of the humans in the U.S. than the animals.
Well, there's something that.
And John, if you think it's a cool hotel room, see the shirt? I mean, is that not mesmerizing?
Does that have shiny parts?
Are you not entertained?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You just stop paying attention to anyone else and you just stare at the shirt. At least that's what I'm doing. But that's what I do on my best days anyway.
You're jealous, Michael.
Yeah.
I get it. It's all good.
Oh. So, are we ready for a silly question?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, number 2.
What is the airspeed velocity of a swallow?
Oh, I think I asked this before, but I'm sorry. Here we go. If you had to write a romance novel set on a spaceship, what would the most absurd obstacle be for the lovebirds to overcome?
Oh, man. I guess that would
radiation sickness. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, microasteroids. I don't know. It would depend on whether it's a Star Trek, Star Wars type universe where all the ships seem to have gravity. Because I think if you don't have gravity, there's definitely some things to figure out about momentum and physics, that kind of thing. but that's before the romance. I mean, that the romance needs to get started before you move to zero gravity gymnastics, I guess. I think it would be hard because there's usually a very small number of people in space. And so if you were around the person that you were romantically involved with all the time, and I've been married for a long time, so we've figured out how to do it. But if you were forced to be in a small space, breathing the same air for the whole time, I kind of feel like you would need a chance to go, just sit and stare into the void a little bit all alone. That could be tricky.
Okay.
That went a way I wasn't expecting.
EL, in honor of our missing brethren, I don't know who that is, but they're missing. So, if you had to fight your main character, who would win and why?
Oh, so Jessamiko would kick my ass. She is
Ex-Marine.
Yes, she's this total badass, and then it comes out within a couple chapters that she's done time in prison too, and so she doesn't talk about it or boast about it much, but she gets things done, and that's because of the way the story develops. She ends up being kind of isolated on this planet with bad stuff going down, and has to put her background to use. Whereas my background is as an academic teaching geology. And so I would be able to briefly explain to Jess what the soil was that we were standing on before she put several holes in me. So yeah, I would lose hard to Jess.
But you'd know which rock to pick up to try to defend yourself.
That's true. I might spend too much time choosing because I would be distracted by it. And then she would figure out a way to, take me apart. So. Yeah, the book isn't hyper violent, but she does get a chance to, in some parts put that together and use her background.
So Dave, now I'm just picturing you going, "Fool's gold, fool's gold! Look at this over here, it's shiny."
Oh, I mean, if I were on another planet, I would be like, "Whoa, what's this mineral? Oh, this is so cool! They must have a different," and then I'd be dead.
And that's why she would take you out. Be like, "Stop talking about rocks."
I probably wouldn't even notice that she was there because she was in a light infantry kind of scouting unit. So I would be, I probably wouldn't even know that I had been killed, kind of thing.
I don't know that she'd take the time to do it.
Yeah, maybe not. She might identify me as less threat than the local plant life too, and then not worry about me. Yeah.
Well, hey, there might be Venus flytraps there. You never know.
Yeah.
Her analytical mind would find a use for you.
Ooh. So you live in North Carolina, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I've been here since '97 in Greensboro.
Greensboro. Okay.
Yeah, I taught at Guilford College for about 25 years, up until 2021 or so. Yeah.
You stayed at one place like that for 25 years?
Yeah, well, that's kind of how tenure works. If they agree to hire you for a long time, then you kind of stick around because you've pledged to each other that they will keep and support you, and you will keep working for them.
You got tenure pretty early then.
Well, after 6 years is about typical. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad gig then.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be hired on tenure track as opposed to doing adjunct or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another silly question I have to ask about your main character.
Awesome.
If she was to write a self-help book, what problem or problems would she want the readers to solve for themselves?
How to write a self-help book.
How to settle disputes.
No, she would not want to. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because she does there's some flashbacks in the book, and part of the flashbacks are to her working with a counselor. And so she might draw upon those memories and be able to actually put something together. But I think she would bristle at the idea that she should write a book because she's much more sort of hands-on. Although she changes over the course of the story some, and she could probably get there. But yeah, she's smart, but not in terms of I would love to sit down and write a book about something. So yeah, she would probably want them to write their own self-help books.
So she's
Or
very
something
smart.
like, keeping the firing mechanism free of Martian dust.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you wanted her to write a book about taking apart a weapon in the field and reassembling it, she could probably rip that off pretty fast. And she uses a mechanized suit on the planet, so she knows a lot about that kind of thing. She also has been involved in a whole bunch of like small unit tactical engagements and stuff. So yeah, that would be much more what she'd be wanting to do, as opposed to how to process your feelings and move forward from things, which is what she actually needs to do, but is not what she would want to write about. Yeah.
I mean, does she really though? I mean, there's so much. I have a feeling, and I don't know that it's that important to actually express it that often.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, she's been through some stuff. She needs to work through some of it, and so that's part of the plot of the book. The part that isn't just gonzo sci-fi weirdness is her trying to figure out what her new life is like.
Does that like slow it down? And I'm saying this because I guess you see that quite a bit where people think that feelings are important, and I don't know, maybe they are.
Yeah, well, so the reason I chose to do it that way, the way I express that, which isn't, it's not like beating you over the head with it, but she's on this planet, and then something will happen on the planet that triggers a memory for her, and then I'll do a chapter of flashback to her earlier life. And I don't do those, like, they're not every other chapter. It's just occasionally I'll throw in a flashback chapter where you get to see kind of who she was and how she got to this place and what she's bringing to the place where she is, and how she kind of knows some of what to do, but not a lot. So, and then those flashback chapters kind of drop out about halfway through, because you know enough by then, and it's more interesting what she's doing in the world and how she's interacting with the people she meets there. So that's, yeah, I knew that was a risk in doing this, is that, you don't want to do two whole storylines that are completely disconnected in time and all of that, but you do kind of need to know where she's coming from, what she's working with. And I think that makes the experience of where she goes richer, because kind of what the pieces were that she was starting with. So yeah, I thought that worked okay in the book, and I liked it. And so she goes back to some traumatic combat flashbacks at the beginning when she's kind of scared about some things that are going on, and then later on you get to see, how she went through the penal system and all of that, and what started to get her kind of through that. And the flashbacks aren't all chronological, so you're seeing just little scenes, sometimes like with her family, sometimes with a person she used to care about. So there's just these little, and the chapters are short, so it's just a little sort of glimpse of one of these earlier things. And I haven't done a book like that before with flashbacks, so this is my first one where I actually tried that. And I thought it worked okay, but it's up to the readers whether it's too much or not enough.
Well, you made the final 6, so obviously there's something to be said for it, right?
Well, yeah, I managed to snow at least 2 judging teams. Yes, we could say that.
If you're only going to snow 2 people, they may as well be the judges.
No, it's 3 judging teams.
Okay.
And I only got second place in the third judging team. So yeah, in the semifinals. But two moved on, so that was adequate. I was adequate to make it into the finals. Yeah.
Hey, sometimes of these things, it's all you need to do.
Amen.
Yeah.
Is this like the first of a series, or is it a standalone?
No, I usually write standalones. I have one set that's a series, but each of those books is standalone. Those are my Inquisitors Guild ones, which are the first fantasy ones that I did. And each of these is like an individual mystery set.
You want to hold those up and just hold them still for a few seconds?
Sure.
Yeah, you just flashed them up there.
So
Nobody
there's
has a chance to see those.
2 of them. There's actually 3 plus a novella, which is more than I can comfortably hold. But
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, those are the only series ones that I've done. Like all my others are standalones, and each of these is really a standalone because it's set in the same world and time passes between each one. But when you come back, it's actually a different narrator and a different mystery, and so they're all connected but completely independent. You could actually read them in any order and you'd be fine. So Kenai will probably not be a series. It's one. Jess's story is told fully. I think you know where she starts, what she goes through, and where she ends up by the end, and it would be. I could maybe extend it, but it would be. I feel like her story is okay. I have problems with some series because they have what I call the Die Hard 2 problem. Because if you're writing a book about the most interesting thing that's happened in somebody's life and it's this huge adventure, then that usually only happens to people once in a lifetime. And then, Die Hard 2, he's back at an airport and there are more terrorists, that shouldn't happen. So I kind of feel like when you have these books where there's like somebody's life is constantly being upended by weird external forces, that seems a little bit contrived. So I like to do that.
Well,
Now, if you're in a career where you're likely to run into all sorts of bad guys, then that's fine. Or like
who was it that said the Liam Neeson character in Taken? At some point you just gotta think maybe this guy's just a bad father.
Yeah,
Right?
right. Yeah, so that's exactly the same kind of thing. But there's some characters that work that way. Poirot or whatever he's a police inspector, so he's going to have lots of cases, and they might.
Oh yeah, don't ever go live in a small English village because people get murdered there like every other freaking day.
Right.
It's crazy.
No, it's like Cabot Cove, where clearly she was the one killing everyone and then pinning it on other people.
Right.
That's a hip current Murder She Wrote reference for those of you watching out there.
So Dave, I have a question for you, and I have no idea how you're going to answer this.
Okay.
What are you going to write next?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I just released I have this little table here with all my stuff. It's not like I just sit surrounded by books, but I just released this one that's in SPSFC now, Glorious Tale of Lady Isobar, and that was super fun. I want to do another sci-fi book because I would love to enter SPSFC again. I won't have one ready for the summer, but I really enjoy these contests, so I would like to have another one ready to go for sci-fi next year. And so sometime this year I'm going to do another sci-fi book, and I actually have a plot that I thought of, like a plot hook. Again, I only have like a paragraph, but I sent that to myself in like December when I knew that I had zero time to develop it, and I just keep snoozing it on my Gmail until I get to a point where I'm okay, I can do this now. But I've been doing sort of book promotion. I was just in a play that ended a couple weeks ago, and then I had to do the comedy competition and wash out of that. So I've been kind of focused on other things for the last couple of weeks, and it takes me some time to kind of get into the writing thing. For me, I do my best writing when I can actually focus on it over a string of days. And I haven't quite felt like, okay, I've got a good, at least 3 or 4 weeks here where I can kind of focus on it. So, but yeah, so it might be that sci-fi idea. If I want to do another kind of mystery thriller too, because those have been a lot of fun, but that'll probably be like a November project. And I do have a couple of unfinished ones that I kind of left off. There's one about a goblin who got the wrong brain, and so she's this tiny, powerless little goblin, and she has the brain of this massive, demonic killer beast, but is stuck in the social status of a goblin. It's really weird and high concept, but which is why I stopped 2 years ago. And but I like it, and I might come back to it.
That actually sounds fun. So
Yeah.
you strike me then as one of these people that you're only going to write one thing at a time. You don't like book hop between until a project is done.
Right. I can't go back and forth from projects. I can leave one and move on to another one for a while and finish that up. And so that's often what I'll do. Like November, I wrote the first probably 3/4 of this one, my most recent mystery. But then I stopped because I really wanted to finish another thing I was working on. And then I came back and finished that later. So I'm kind of a sequential monogamist when it comes to my books. I have to stick with one at a time. I can't. I've even tried editing one while writing another, and my head just explodes. I can't do that, because in between the time when I'm actually sitting at the computer writing, I'm usually thinking about what's next, and that fills up some sort of metaphorical gas tank. And then when I write, I run out of gas and I have to wait and fill the tank up a little bit. And if I'm doing other creative stuff while I'm trying to do the writing, then I never get any more gas. And I have a lot of trouble kind of staying focused. So that's one thing I've learned. My first book took me 14 years. So it's been a process of development of a technique now where I can go a little faster and be a little more focused. So, yeah.
So how does it, I mean, if you're not doing a lot of series and you're genre hopping, how does that work as far as building an audience and sales, advertising, all that kind of thing?
I would say it works poorly, as all of those smart people who tell you what to do would have confirmed had I listened to them. I have put I have enough books out now that I feel more comfortable advertising. I did a bunch of advertising early on when I just had one book, and that was, I think, a mistake, although it did get to me to where I had a healthy number of reviews and some readers, but I was paying far more for ads than I was getting back in terms of sales or Kindle Unlimited page reads. So not that that was bad, but it was kind of an investment in growing my audience that was fickle and didn't always work. Now that I have more books, if I do a promotion, I can usually see some of my other books get picked up. So there's like a sense that, if one thing does well, then it kind of lifts the others too. And so that gives me a little more kind of leverage for the kinds of promotional things that I do. But because they're not in the same genre, it's not as easy, because I have to kind of find different people for the different genres. There's some folks who are, I only know of, maybe 6 or 7 of them who are kind of super fans who will basically read whatever I do and don't care what genre it is. But then there are others who only want to take a little piece of, what I do and read that. And so that's not a great strategy, but, and I thought about doing pen names, but like I said, that would be confusing. And I also have a tiny bit of notoriety from the video game from a long time ago. And I thought if I could, make any kind of use of that, that would be helpful. I don't know if you guys read the bio or anything, but I wrote this computer game called Snood back in the 90s that got pretty big. It had about 50 million downloads and got mentioned on The Sopranos. And
how do you spell it?
SNOOD.
B? As in boy?
SNOOD.
Z as in dog.
Yeah.
D. D.
Yeah. So that means almost nothing to anybody now, but it was a little bit of a big thing in the early 2000s. And so some people still remember it. And
Snood is a puzzle video game program by Dave Dobson.
Yeah, that was me.
Released in '96 as shareware.
Yeah.
So is there going to be a follow-up to Snood?
I got myself bought out of the company in 2012. So yeah, I'm not likely.
You can't use the character in a book or anything?
No, I don't know. The characters are it's just a simple puzzle game where you shoot little heads around. So you'd have to be trying hard to get a plot out of that, I think.
Hollywood has done less.
Yeah, that's probably true.
They've done less with more.
Yeah. But no, I still do some game design stuff too. I've got a bunch of puzzle card games that I do. You'll be unsurprised to know that those are sitting next to me here too. So yeah, I have these they're like escape room in a box sorts of things. So I keep busy doing a lot of different kinds of creative stuff. I did a Kickstarter for the puzzle games about a year ago and have been sending those out.
How'd that work out for you?
It worked out fine. I actually have 4 of them, and I did the first one of them probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I finally had done a game where the investment to get it printed wouldn't kill me. which is the big problem with board games, because once you have a box and little plastic pieces and a whole bunch of dice and printed material, they usually are super expensive unless you're going to print, 3,000 or 4,000 copies. And I couldn't afford, for something that might not work, to spend $10 a copy on 3,000 games that would probably die with me in my basement, So, but with the card games, I could do a smaller print run, and they were more like $2 or $3 a game, and so that was something I kind of try out. So I did the first one of them, the original Dr. Esker's Notebook, just on my own money, and then followed it with the second one, and then the third one I did a Kickstarter, but that was more to just get people excited about it and sign on than to kind of fund it, because I had enough proceeds from the earlier ones to make another one. So anyway, yeah, that's been fun too. That's
So Dave, can I give you some bad advice that you should not take? 3D printer. That way you can make your own pieces for the box game.
Yeah, but I think if you were making 30,000 little plastic dudes, you'd probably spend more on the printer falling apart and on plastic beads or whatever.
Oh, don't worry about that. Just jump in.
Yeah. No, a dream for me would be to get a game published also by a big company, or figure out how to do it myself, because a lot of them are self-published on Kickstarter now. And I have a cool one that's set on an asteroid that you're trying to mine, and it's got a bunch of dice and 3 different kinds of cards and boards you pass around. So that's something I might try to do a Kickstarter for later in the year.
So the geologist has a board game about mining.
Yeah, I live a lot of stereotypes.
See that coming.
I'm also an Iowan who likes Mountain Dew, and can't dance. So yeah, that.
Have you ever thought about taking that experience with Kickstarter and trying to launch a book with it?
I see a lot of people doing that with books now, and the Kickstarter could get you some attention, I think, but that would mean that you would have to promote the Kickstarter kind of to get that attention. And for me, I would rather just promote the book than try to go through a whole sort of contractual Kickstarter thing. I think if I were writing more in series, that would work better, because you could kickstart the next series or a companion series. Like there are a bunch of authors that have multiple series set in the same world, and that would be a really cool thing to kind of kickstart if you had that kind of continuity. But if it's just, hey, I'm going to write another book, you want to send me some money? That would be, I don't think that would work so well. Or if I wanted it to work, I'd have to spend time doing videos and things, which is not where the fun is for me. I would rather write 2 books than do a Kickstarter or 1 book, I guess.
So I would just suggest get a shirt like Rose, and then when you do the video, everyone will just be staring in awe.
I have learned long ago that there are types of clothing I should never try, and I feel like that shirt might be in that category. Fedoras are right out for me, and most corduroy. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried a shirt like that. Maybe it would be the thing I've been missing all these years. But
I think it's just the lighting is bad, man. What color do you see the shirt as?
It's green with white sparkles. You look like you're being beat up in classic Star Trek. Actually,
it's blue. It's not green at all. It's the light in this room.
It definitely looks green to me.
It looks green to me too in the monitor, but it's not.
Yeah, you clash.
And it doesn't sparkle. There are no sparkles on the shirt.
There are no sparkles on the shirt? Oh, I thought that was the whole point of the shirt.
No sparkles on the shirt. See, so it's this lamp. This horrible piece of shit lamp.
So Dave,
all right, fuck y'all.
On a serious note, I will tell you that a lot of authors have had success on Kickstarter when they do just like the leather bound or the extra. Which I have absolutely zero interest in. I don't even really like to have physical books. I just put them all on my Kindle. Yeah. But for when we do the whole series of Finalist, I buy your book because I want to have it behind me. Yeah, right there. Everybody's
Yeah.
books. So,
That's cool. Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
appreciate it. You can
if
use
you
it
want,
as a desktop once we're done tonight.
if
But
you want to do, if you want to do special editions, I think that's really a good way to go for Kickstarter.
yeah. I think if I got to a point where, like, the people I see having a lot of success with that are usually people that I kind of see in the ecosystem above me, whose books aren't rated, 200,000th. They're more like, 100,000 or 50,000 on Amazon, and then people are really excited. And then there's, Brandon Sanderson, who has his $1 million Kickstarter or whatever. But I don't feel like I quite have the audience to do that. And because my books are all over the place, I don't know that I have a hook for that kind of thing. But it would be.
But when this wins.
If it wins, yeah, then that might be something really neat. And I could commission artists for a lot of those have art plates and stuff in them. That would be pretty neat. I love the cover. This is done by a friend of mine. And cool trivia. The gun here, you might remember from the line of Nerf guns. She used that. Her kid had a Nerf gun. She used that as a model for the Space Pistol. So if it looks nerfy, that's why, because it was a Nerf gun in real life. That'll probably get me, I don't know, sued or something. But
if you have your special edition, put your main character in a green shirt with sparkles on the cover.
I don't think Jess would wear that either. Right? That's not her personality, really.
For a guy who's going to get a tattoo on your frickin' head.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to get that lawnmower tattoo? Yeah, I saw that earlier.
If we get to 500, we're at 225 now. So tell your friends. And actually, I've decided I'm not going to get this tattoo. I'm going to get a guy with a scythe, and he's going to be like he's reaping instead of the lawnmower, because I think, as a fantasy author, I think that's more appropriate for me to get that.
A little more morbid, I guess, the advancement of time and mortality there too. That would be. But you'd look better in a biker bar with a guy with the scythe than
I would never look good in a biker bar.
Don't sell yourself short,
not in a
biker bar.
And some leather. I think you can pull it up. You've got the weapons in the back,
Well, okay.
That's right.
Yeah, but everybody in the biker bar would have guns. And I'd be literally be bringing a knife to a gunfight, and we know that doesn't work.
Yeah, but that's a gladius, man. That's not a knife. I think people would give you, if they wouldn't give you absolute respect, they'd give you plenty of room if you were psycho enough to whip out a frickin' short sword.
Fair. Of course, when I end up cutting myself, then that's when they okay, this guy.
All bets are off once you do something stupid like that. Yeah.
That's just like chumming the water at that point. Yeah.
You're asking to be bitch slapped at that point.
Ooh.
Man, oh man. Got any more dumb questions, Mike?
I have an unlimited supply of dumb questions, bro.
How long is your list? Like, what kind of dice are you rolling there? Are these like percentiles?
I roll a 10-sided die first, and then because I have 30 some odd questions, and then I roll the 20-sided die the second time. And after we ask the question, I move it to the end so that I can't bring it up the next show. It has to be a while before it.
Yeah. Okay.
We just got an 8, which is. Oh, I didn't move this. That's what we asked Wick. So we'll go to the. No. Okay. Wow, I really have not been keeping up with this. As if you're surprised. Hey, Dave, when did you get your link to come onto our show? 90 seconds before?
Yes, okay. But it was just in time. And had you not mentioned it, everyone would have thought that this was run like a well-oiled machine.
No, people have seen the show know better.
No, they know very much better than to think well-oiled machine.
Let's see. What is the weirdest writing habit or ritual that you have?
Oh, man. A ritual.
Doing a funnel before you start?
No, you don't need to pixelate anything. The weirdest thing I probably do is when I'm doing like nano fast, when I'm trying to do 3,000 words a day, I do a session in the afternoon, you know, and then I will have dinner and hang out with my wife and play some video games. And then I'll do another session after midnight. And so that's the only way I can do 3,000 words a day plus is that schedule. I imagine I could do it at like 8 and 8, but you know, 1 and 1 is how I end up doing it because I've always been a night owl, and now that I don't have a person who is paying me for anything, I can kind of get up when I want, and so I've reverted to college basically and get up at noon.
Nice. That is the way to go.
Yeah. So
What kind of video games you playing now?
I play a lot of them. I've been doing Helldivers recently. That's the newest one. And that's a lot of fun. I have my brother and my niece play, and I've got a couple friends who do. I started Fallout again after watching the TV series, and it is almost as cool as I remember. I remember plots really well, and so I find myself like going into a building and being like, oh yeah, there's going to be a box up at the top that has something in it. And so it's weird because I haven't played it for, I don't know, 8 years or something, that I can still remember where everything is. So that takes some of the enjoyment out of it. But I've been blowing away super mutants and stuff. And then one of my really good college friends and I play RTS games almost every night, real-time strategy. So they just released a kind of an anniversary edition of Age of Empires 2. I don't know if you guys are gamers.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. So isometric little, 8-bit guys running around. And so we have played the hell out of that, probably more hours than almost anything else I've done. On my own, I play a lot of Defense of the Ancients, which is a MOBA game where it's kind of an esports thing where you're 5 players versus 5 players on a team, and you're trying to destroy the other people's towers. That's really fun. It's like League of Legends, but harder and better for the soul. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You don't get into the RPGs?
Oh no, I do those a lot, but I tend to do those kind of episodically. Let's see. I want to do the new God of War one. I kind of skipped that, and there's a new Assassin's Creed out that I mean to do. When I'm writing, I can't do video games because if I start video games, then I just do video games. And so I've been kind of trying to figure out, now that I'm catching my breath after the release of the fantasy book, am I going to try to write something, or am I going to dive deep? And Fallout was sort of a compromise with that because I figured I'd burn out on that faster than if it was a new. But yeah,
my last book would have been out.
It was my
Would have
favorite.
been out 4 months earlier had it not been for Civ 6.
Oh yeah, yeah. I still get lost to Civ for whole like weekends.
Yeah, because you sit there, you say, "I'm just going to play this for about an hour."
Right.
You can't do that. It's like 6 hours at least.
Then the barbarians attack your town, and you're like, "Crap! I have to build boats so I can go get rid of that base that they keep." Yeah. I have lost.
Stupid game.
Civilization was the first game I played that I would play and then realize that birds were chirping, and be like, "Oh my God, it is morning, and I have to go to grad school now." That is so bad. So that was the first one. It's Civ 1, I guess that was back in 92, 93. That was the start of a lifelong unhealthy relationship with video games that I have to this day. So.
Well, I still play Masters of Orion 2, which is
that's awesome. Yeah,
at 93.
That's cool. Well, I still play NetHack, which dates me even farther. That's the one where you're little text characters. You guys know that one?
No.
Oh, well, when they say games are roguelike, that's what they mean. That is rogue. The original, like you played on a VT100 terminal, and like you're a little @ sign, and your walls are minuses and bars, and you walk around. Yeah. So and all the monsters are letters, like the dragons are D's and the orcs are O's and stuff, and you go around. That game is crazy complicated because they added so much sort of lore and history to it, and it's just a delight. When I was teaching, I used to make people in my freshman seminar play it because I did a course kind of on the development of alternate versions of reality, you can get away with any kind of course teaching freshmen, So, but I would make them play kind of the evolution of video games over time. So we'd start with, just the earliest video games, text adventures, and then do NetHack, which was the first one that was kind of representational, even though everything you were fighting was punctuation. And then I'd have them play more 3D first-person things, So we would go through kind of the evolution of video games and talk about what you gained and lost from a narrative perspective, going from the text adventure, which is almost all narrative, but still self-directed, to the kind of first-person games, which are much more scripted and you don't have as much freedom to kind of do whatever you want.
So Bro is my editor, and he can tell you that I lose the punctuation all the time.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
I was
good,
going to say something like that, but I said no. That would be rude.
You would be losing lizards and crocodiles and that kind of thing, and potions if you were losing punctuation there. So.
Oh.
So, what's next?
Next is probably the sci-fi book once I get my head clear. And I do have this sort of kind of grace period vacation between books that I do sometimes. So that's kind of where I feel like I am now. But I feel like, by the end of June, I'll get the itch again. And I think that sci-fi one is the next one I want to tackle. I also I have the asteroid mining board game. I really like it. And my family, who will tell me when one of my games is terrible, have not yet told me that this one is terrible. But I want to kind of retool it, and I've got a really good board gaming group now that I can inflict it on and see if they like it. That's kind of like inviting people to your open mic poetry session. Hey, you want to play this board game I made? But
you should come to come up to Roanoke in August for what the hell's that name of that thing we're doing?
Crash City Con.
Crash City Con, which is a lot of games.
It's a gaming convention, and they're trying to broaden it out, so they're asking for authors, and they're even accepting Ro and I.
Yeah, right. So I mean, they're desperate, plainly. Yeah. But
yeah,
I think they would love to have someone bring a brand new kind of game there, and you might find some people willing to back it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've been thinking that conventions is a way I might want to go. I have these card games and all the books, so I have enough to do a table. Like if you do a table and you only have one book, I think you just look sort of sad.
Yes,
but I would have enough.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, right. But
with more books.
But I have enough stuff at least that I can cover most of the surface area of the table, even if I didn't sell anything. So I could at least hold my head high. I hired an artist to do some art for me to advertise the first fantasy series. And so I might get a banner made from that. I talked to an advertising consultant who's a friend of mine, and we went over some strategy, and going to cons was definitely one of those things. But I think I would want to go do the con instead of sit at my table all the time. I don't really know how that works, if you can kind of take a break and actually go to some of the events and stuff.
Yeah. We've been to cons before. You just take an extra something and throw it over your table and just wander off for a while. But
and then you will sit there the whole time going, I know there were 4 people who would have bought my book if I was there. And you tell yourself that even though you stood there for hours, waiting for anyone to approach.
Yeah.
But you just know as soon as you walked away.
But I worry about is a good place for it.
Striking up conversations with strangers is something that fills me with terror, especially when I'm asking something of them. So I mean, I have a lot of experience teaching and doing the comedy, but being like, hey, you want to come look at my stuff? That is like nightmare material for me.
Have you never been to a con?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've been to.
Consider the folks who are at cons, it's really much easier than you're making it out in your head to be, because all the people there, aside from being, and I say this with the best possible reference, being nerds and everything, they're all about everything that's there, right? So they are in their element, and they're more than happy to talk to you. And then they'll come up and they'll just start a conversation with you. It's not difficult at all.
Okay, well, cool. That might get me over my paralyzing self-doubt there. That would be cool.
No, cons are good. There's not a triathlete in sight.
There was a really cool game shop in downtown Roanoke. We used to go through there on my geology field trips. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was on that main street that went kind of through the center of town. And I always wanted to stop, but I was surrounded by 25 students who would have been like, "Why are you out here taking us to a game store?" We were probably 4 or 5 of them, like, "Oh, this is cool," but the rest of them were like, didn't want to even be doing the geology, so that would have been harder.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no game stores that I know in the middle of town. Of course, I don't really go into Roanoke that much, but
yeah.
I didn't dog on the physically fit. I just, I am. I just said there's not a lot of triathletes at Comic-Con. It's not a judgmental thing. It's a very objective, observable phenomenon.
I don't know. The more authors that I see who, I mean, most of them are younger than I am. I'm 54 now, but most of them are younger than I am. But there are a lot more that don't seem nerdy at all. And I kind of feel like that's great, because fantasy and sci-fi and everything is being embraced by the masses now. But then I'm also like, wait, these used to be my people, and now they all can, mountain bike and do squats and stuff. And I'm still the same doughy, dude that I have been this whole time. And it's not fair,
I get you. Who was it? It was Amber Toro we interviewed, and she's
she does mountain biking. I watched that one. I was like, oh my god, you pick different routes to mountain bike. I couldn't even identify a mountain bike. That's not fair.
She's like, I'm a mother of 5. I mountain bike X number of miles a day. I write 2,000 words every single day. And
I'm like, I can eat a whole large pizza by myself with extra cheese. Can you do that, Amber? I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I can't say anything anymore now because EL made me feel bad.
Oh no.
No, well, that's okay. EL's going to be on next week, and we can terrorize him then.
That's all right. It's my show. I can be judgmental if I want. Damn it.
That's right. When you get to wear the sparkly shirt, you can do that too. Just not going to let that go, Ro.
You're going to have to make a GIF of the shirt like sparkling and just post that everywhere you can.
A sparkly shirt.
A sparkly shirt. I think that'd be great.
No, it's not sparkly. It's also not green. I swear to God, it's blue.
Yeah, that's what a guy wearing a sparkly green disco shirt would say.
There is that, of course, yes. We need a button on here, Mike, where I can just play outro music and just.
Oh, the hook! You need the hook on the show. Yeah.
Oh man, I don't need this from you. I have a family. If I want to be, I want people to shit on me. I can go home.
Oh yeah, my kids moved out now. They're. Oh gosh, I'm going to mess up their ages, which I always do. They think it's sad, but they're 25 and 27, I think. Yeah, so they're well embarked on their own lives. So that means I get a lot less crap around the house than I used to. But it also means that I don't have a ready audience for all the stuff that I'm doing. So that's another thing. It's giving me more time to write now than I had before. It was just, the days are more my own than they used to be, for good or for bad, and so that gives me a lot more time to do these other things that I've been trying to do.
So what I've gained now is you have lots of time to do what you want. You've written 9 books in 4 different genres. You've written card games. You have a book game. I mean, you are living the life. This is like the dream life.
Yes, I have learned that it is possible to half-ass a lot of things. And so that is my ambition, is to keep half-assing things for as long as I possibly can.
Nice.
Are you happy doing it?
Yes, that's right.
And you're a night owl? Oh my God, you can stay up till 3 and it doesn't have to kill you the next morning when you have to get up? Oh my God, this is my dream.
No, see, the reason that works is that I don't have to get up. So
right.
I don't. I, kind of wake up and wave at my wife as she goes off to work, and then I sleep some more. And it is not a mature or healthy way to be, but it is functional and
Sounds
productive.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am so jealous.
My one goal is just to have every day just get up when I wake up, to not have an alarm clock anymore. That's my goal. I have nothing grander in mind than that. I just want to, get up when I get up.
Yeah. That is that one part of the dream I am living now. Yes. Retaining my hair and youthful musculature is not part of that dream, but at least sleeping until I can wake up is.
And I think just waving the wife off to work would just be that would.
She works
cherry on top of it all.
So it's kind of like waving her up the stairs, but that kind of thing. Yes, and so far she's been tolerant of my sluggardly, kind of half-assing of my life at this point. So yeah, I hope that lasts. She's very tolerant of me, and she does like the books, so that helps.
How often do you see her off at the door and say, "Have fun storming the castle, dear"?
Well, usually by the time I stumble up here at 11 or 11:30, she's in a meeting or something. But we will sometimes have lunch together. Yeah.
She works from home.
Yeah, most of her. She has a couple days a week in the office. Yeah, so that's we moved to a smaller house just about a year ago, and we have these two offices like right next to each other upstairs. So that's actually been really cool to be able to hang out and kind of hear a little bit what the other one is doing. For me, I hear her deep in meetings with seasoned professionals, and for her, I'm cussing because I just got killed in a game of Dota or something. But that kind of thing. Or I'm watching videos of you guys talking to other sci-fi authors.
Living your best life.
Man, I am jealous.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything we didn't ask you that we should have asked you, Dave? I like to ask that question, so there's at least one pertinent question in the whole interview.
Yeah, no, I heard you ask that of other people, and I thought I'm not going to know how to answer that, and I was right. I don't know that I don't want to give away a ton about the book, so we didn't talk that much about it, at least. But I think it's been really interesting because it's done well in the competition, which is unusual for me. I've gotten a semifinal for Daros, and I was a semifinalist for one of my Inquisitors Guild books in these competitions. But this is the farthest I've made it. But it's actually the book that's the worst rated of mine on Amazon and Goodreads, which is super interesting to me. It's also very popular. It's been half my sales the last year, and that may have something to do with the contest, or it may just be that there's an audience for military sci-fi. I think that's part of it, is that there's a big, especially Kindle Unlimited audience for military sci-fi, and it's not exactly military sci-fi, but it's got a military person. And
Dave, everybody's seen that Nerf gun. They're not putting two and two together, and they're thinking back to their childhood, and that's why they're buying your book.
Oh yeah, that could be.
Yeah, if Nerf doesn't find out, you're good.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know because I haven't talked to anybody or done any wise research, but I think what might be happening is that there's a little bit of a conceptual challenge that I ask people to take in the middle of the book. And some of the judges have kind of alluded to this in SPSC, and some of them like that. It's a book you have to kind of either kind of accept or maybe forgive the central sort of premise, and then the rest of it is pretty cool, but some people are not willing to do that, and they just think it's cheesy. And so I don't know. That's my guess. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know, because its success doesn't match its rating. I have other books that have much higher ratings, but don't sell as well. And so I'm just, and it's not a number of ratings thing, because I know ratings go down over time as you get more reviews. You've got 170 on your Druid book, so you probably have seen that happening.
You've got how many?
I got 142, I think, on Goodreads and 137 on Amazon.
Yeah, sorry.
It's slowly going down. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's very typical. Which I'm a data scientist in some ways, so I'm fascinated by how that works. Because you start. It makes sense though, because you start with people who are your biggest fans and looking for exactly that, and then you gradually broaden your audience to people who are like, "What the hell is this?" And by the time you get to those people and they're like 3 and 4 starring you, then you're going to sink. But yeah, it's been a different path for this book from the others, and yet it's obviously rubbed some of the contest judges the right way, and certainly other folks. So I haven't figured that out. That's if anybody has a cool idea about why that might be, I'm curious about it. I'm happy that it's doing well, but and it's not terrible. It's like a 4.2, but I usually am up near 4.4, 4.5. So yeah.
So with my books, I got a lot of booktubers to read it. And if you're reading 100 plus books a year, I mean, they typically give me 4 stars, which I'm thrilled with 4-star rating.
Oh yeah, 4 stars is a good review.
But if you read 20 books in a year, I'm like, I got a much better chance being a 5-star because there's a whole lot less competition in your mind than super readers. But I mean, they do videos. I cannot complain about the booktubers. They're wonderful.
Well, no, and everybody's stars are different. Like some people are only going to 5-star, 6 books in their life. And other people are like, oh, 5-star everything, unless I kind of didn't like it. And then it's 4 or 3, so it's that scale is just all over the place. So, But anyway, that wasn't a question. That was a philosophical, statistical topic that I raised. So I don't have another question I think that you should have asked. But anyway.
I can tell you for the 4 books I've put out, the book that I absolutely think was my best writing is my lowest rated.
Oh, really?
And the only one that's not above a 4. And I'm like, think it's my best, and no one else agrees with me.
Well, the other thing I'm sort of realizing is a book can be your best one, or can be really great book, but if it's challenging to the reader, they're not going to come out of it. It's kind of like if you are asking somebody to eat a Twinkie, like a Twinkie tastes great, right? And you get to the end of the Twinkie and you're like, I have just had a Twinkie and I am happy. But if you're asking them to do like a complex roast with a side of vegetables and some weird herbs you haven't quite had before, people get to the end of that and they're like, that was really interesting, but I don't know if I would have rather had a Twinkie, and so I think sometimes the really great things that you've tried to do are not going to necessarily be your best rated ones. Even though people will, think about them and be talking about them afterwards. I don't know. That's a guess, but I think that might be part of it. I don't know.
Ro, do you have any words of wisdom to throw at us?
Get better lights in hotels.
No, we don't want that.
Yeah, nothing else.
Maybe you could get a spinning mirror ball. That'd be pretty cool.
I think we're done here.
Okay, I think it is time to wave awkwardly.
Dave, thank you very much for your time, man. Appreciate it.
I have started watching your channel all the time, and you guys are just so fun, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and I thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're Gen X, so you understand.
Yes. Well,
that's right.
What little I understand, I can understand from that perspective.
Okay, well, everyone, wave awkwardly. It's time.
Thanks, guys.
And we're still live.